Thousands of children and families in Marion County struggle with issues like poverty, substance abuse, or mental and emotional illness. Many local services exist to help families in crisis, but families often don't know about these services or can't get to them. Unmet needs can result in child abuse, neglect, or juvenile delinquency. The Early Intervention Planning Council, through the Marion County Commission on Youth's Early Intervention and Prevention Initiative, has created a plan to give families earlier access to services in the hopes of reducing the number of children who get abused or neglected or turn to delinquent acts. We hope you enjoy our monthly program, Our Kids, Our Families, Our Communities, and learn more about the local services here to help you.
Hi, welcome to another edition of Our Kids, Our Families, Our Communities. My name is Shana Martin and I'm the Director of the Early Intervention and Prevention Initiative at McCoy. And today's show is focused all around back to school. It's that time of year. A lot of schools get kicked back off in August, so our guests here today are going to talk a little bit about how to get kids ready for back to school. So we have Mike Bachman from the United Way of Central Indiana, Mindy Goodpaster from McCoy, and Michael Williams from the Department of Education. So I'll just let each one of you introduce yourselves and talk a little bit about what you do at your organization.
Sure. Mike Bachman with United Way of Central Indiana, and I work specifically with our early childhood initiatives. And our goal is to grow quality early childhood in Central Indiana so that all children receive a high quality early childhood education.
Okay, thanks for being here today, Mike.
You're welcome.
I'm Mindy Goodpaster. I'm the Public Policy Director for McCoy, and I work with United Way of Central Indiana on early childhood issues at the State House, and I also work on education issues at the State House.
Thank you.
And I'm Michael Williams from the Indiana Department of Education Office of Student Services, and we work with families as well as school districts to help ensure the quality of education for students.
Okay, well thank you very much for being here. We have a lot of school systems in the Indianapolis-Marion County area, so it's kind of hard to focus on one particular one and can't have guests from all of them. So Michael is here to just generally kind of talk about how parents can help their kids get ready for school, and we're also going to talk about the importance of attendance, and then we'll kind of talk a little bit more about kids who aren't in school yet but in early education childhood centers and how they can get ready for kindergarten. And then Mindy will talk about some changes that happened in the legislative session this year that went into effect July 1st, and what parents need to know. So Michael, you want to just start with some general things that parents should know to get their kids ready this year?
Sure. Generally speaking, I think that most parents have received information about where their school is located, kind of supply lists, reading materials that students should look at over the summer. And I think those are good places to start at this point to kind of get ready for August, as well trying to get students to develop that routine of getting up in the morning and having a routine so that they're not totally surprised when August hits.
Okay. And for parents to find out more specific information, they should go to their school's website
Yes,
or
absolutely.
contact their school directly
Yes.
if they haven't received any information yet, or whatever school district. So if they're in IPS, they can call central office. If they're in Pike, they can call kind of Pike's central
Yes.
office.
And they should be there right now about going about the business of getting ready for school in August. So
Okay.
folks should be there to answer questions.
And the first day of school, important to be there?
Absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely. I think that kind of sets the tone for, again, that routine. You can't receive what teachers have to offer, as well as cafeteria and other staff persons in the school district. You can't receive those great learning opportunities if you're not there in a seat and ready to learn.
Mm-hmm. And there's been a lot of research recently in the last couple of years really tying attendance to school achievement and school success, later on throughout the lifetime of a child.
Mm-hmm.
So kids that don't go to kindergarten or don't attend every day throughout school, they have lower test scores no matter what school setting they're in. So whether they're in a public school, charter school, in a rural setting,
Mm-hmm.
in an urban school setting, I mean, there's just been a lot of work that says if kids aren't going to school, then they're not going to do as well. And that also leads to increased high school dropout.
Rates,
And,
yes.
When young people drop out of high school, then that leads to lots of other negative impacts, like an increased likelihood to end up incarcerated, lower paying wages and jobs that really impact all of us.
Absolutely.
So I've had a lot of kindergarten teachers say that we have a lot of kids that don't come to school on the first day because
Mm-hmm.
parents don't recognize the importance of really being there. And even though kindergarten is not mandatory in Indiana, it's still something that's really, really important, and families should take advantage of it and make sure their kids get there. And the more they go in kindergarten, first grade, second grade, then it just becomes an automatic thing and a culture in the family that attending school is something that's a priority and is necessary.
Yeah, and student attendance has an effect on a lot of different facets of education. The teacher and what that instructor is trying to get across to students. If students are not there, that teacher has to go back and repeat the lesson or to provide extra work for that student, while at the same time trying to keep other students that have been there motivated and on track with their learning. But if a teacher has to go back and, I guess, gives more attention to a student who has been absent and reviewing a lesson, that gives less opportunity for those students that have been there on time, as well as the students that may not have grasped the lesson fully.
Okay.
So it affects a lot of different areas in education.
And where should a parent turn, or who should they contact if they are having challenges getting their child to school for a variety of reasons? Work schedule, I mean, there's just lots of various barriers and reasons why.
And the first point of contact should be that local school.
Okay.
If they're not getting the answers that they need there, then definitely the district office. But schools are well aware of accommodations that could be made for transportation issues, work schedules, students' illnesses, or other reasons, legitimate reasons that students are out of school.
Okay. Other resources that the Department of Education has for a parent who's interested, or a community member that just is looking for information.
Well, the Department of Education's website I found to be very, very helpful and useful in providing information and guidance to parents. There are a lot of resources to help students prevent that summer slide, if you will, for lack of reading practice and mathematics practice. They refer to it sometimes as a summer slide, where students lose some of the information that they've gained from the prior school year. So at the Department of Education's website, there are connections to a Garfield program, for instance, that keeps it fun and interactive and not challenging for students and parents to work together to just keep students in practice of reading and doing those basic math skills that they had gained from the prior school year.
Okay, and we talked a lot during our one of our June shows about summer programs and the Summer Youth Program Fund, and how families could be looking for summer programs that had an emphasis on maintaining academics or an academic focus. So.
And again, at the website, there are links to other reading programs and others throughout the community. It is just categorized county-wide, so you can click on your particular county, and it will give you a list of resources and places that students can go to, again, enhance their learning.
Okay, thank you. And a little bit back to attendance, because I think there were some legislative things done this year, or some policies maybe being proposed and studied that have to do with attendance. So you want to talk a little bit about that, Mindy?
Sure. The General Assembly was very concerned this year about the importance of attendance and the fact that we're having kids who are not attending regularly, and the impact that that has in terms of dropout rates, graduation rates, and things like that. So the legislature looked at a bill this year to define what it means to be chronically absent and what it means to be habitually truant, which means missing school for a certain number of days out of the year. They decided that the subject is so important that they want to look at it in further detail this summer during one of their study committees. They want to look at how are we defining excused absences, what is an excused absence, why is it important for parents to ensure that if they are taking their children out of school, they understand the importance of why they should, try to minimize how much they take their kids out of school. So there will be some further study into that, and looking at how can schools better help parents understand the importance of attending school, and then remove those barriers, as you were talking about, the different reasons why kids don't come to school. And just trying to be more collaborative in the effort. It is really tough nowadays with, different work schedules and things like that, but we really need to get kids in the seats. And if kids miss too much school, there are very few opportunities for them to catch up. The school year is packed with, curricula, getting ready for testing, those kinds of things. And if kids miss, 1 or 2 days, they're already set behind. So that's a really big problem. We need to make sure that they're there as much as possible.
Okay. Talk a little bit about the proposed connection between TANF benefits and attendance, because I think that's something that's really important that our viewers might need to be aware of.
Yes, one of the issues that the legislature will look at this summer is if you are receiving public welfare benefits, temporary assistance for needy families, or TANF, tying school attendance to the eligibility for those benefits. So if your child is not attending school regularly, missing 10% of the days, which is about 18 days throughout the school year, then you could lose your TANF eligibility.
Okay. So that's something, again, I think it's important for viewers to be aware of, and like we've talked in previous shows, everybody has an opportunity to advocate for, to be aware of, and to say, this is not good, or yes, this is good. So just being aware that the legislator is getting really serious about attendance in school, because it does impact so much from an economic development perspective and future workforce development and all of that, that they're looking to make those kind of connections. But then there's also ramifications for that, and there are people who it could really impact their lives in other ways. So if there's already barriers to getting your kids to school, removing your benefits may not be such a good thing, but people just need to be aware and that they're taking note of all of that kind of stuff.
Well, and they also need to be aware that there are currently consequences to children missing too much school and being truant. Children can lose their driver's licenses. They can be reported to the BMV. They could be considered status offenders if they miss too much school and they get into trouble while they're not in school. And parents can also be held for educational neglect and have to go to court. So it's a really serious issue, and we'd like to try to do more on the prevention end, trying to get help, rather than the punitive end where people are getting into trouble.
Exactly. Okay, well, thank you. Thank you. It's helpful. So let's talk about kids who aren't in kindergarten or above yet, and why it's important that they have early childhood good quality opportunities, and what they need to be getting in order to be ready for kindergarten, so that transition to kindergarten is more smooth. So you want to take that, Mike?
Sure. I think that the most important thing that parents realize is that it's never too early. In the state of Indiana, children can start attending childcare as early as 6 weeks. And we do know that much of the brain is developed by the time they're 3 years old. So really making sure that the children have that, are in that social environment and that educational environment early is very, very important. It's important that we understand and parents know what to ask when they're looking for childcare. In the state of Indiana, we do have a quality rating system called Paths to Quality that tells parents exactly how quality their childcare is. It's a 4-level system. The first level being basic health and safety skills and basic health and safety environments. The second is really looking at the educational environments inside of the classroom, and then also the interactions with the children between the teacher and the student. The third level is looking at curriculum and assessment. So what are the children being taught, and are we sure that they're going to be ready for kindergarten? And then level 4 is national accreditation, which just means that they're not only meeting the standards for the state of Indiana, but for the entire nation. And so that goes across the nation, anywhere that you are, by one of the national accrediting bodies. Okay. It's very important that the children are in childcare, mainly, I would say, for the social and emotional to start. In talking to a lot of kindergarten teachers, they're spending the first 2 or 3 months teaching children how to interact with each other before they can even start educating, how to have carpet time, how to share space with other people, and share toys and educational items with other children. And if children were to start in childcare and in an early childhood setting, they would be able to learn those skills so that they are prepared for kindergarten when they enter that classroom, and understand what the expectations of them are when they enter that classroom. And then looking at the education pieces that children should know. All children should know how to write their name, spell their name. Parents that don't have their children in childcare, that's okay, but they might want to focus some on phonemic awareness, making sure that children understand the letters, the sounds that those letters make, and how it feels in their mouths and how it sounds to their ears. That's a basic foundation that all children need to have when they go to kindergarten.
Okay, so there's things that even if kind of two streams
Sure,
of thought here.
sure.
There's what you need to be looking for if you're going to put your child in a child care center, and making sure that it's quality, that the child is safe, that it's regulated, because there's different standards here that we have in Indiana. Asking those questions, spending some time there. But at the same time, if your child, if you're a stay-at-home parent and your child doesn't need to go to child care, there's still things you should be doing and can be doing at home to make sure that they are ready for kindergarten. Flashcards that you can buy anywhere at the dollar store. I think I saw there's some, if you Google kindergarten readiness, they can give you a variety of checklists so you can kind of go through and see what are some things that your kids need to have. Like cutting with scissors, I saw was on there. Sharing with other kids, like you said, being able to simply follow directions. So even if they're not in a child care center, there are things that parents can do sort of intentionally at home, and getting together other family. You know, well, let's go have a play date with the neighbors at the park, or having a play date with your cousins in your home, and helping your child to be able to sit and wait, or to have, to sit at the table and everybody eat at the same time, are still skills that they need to learn that will help them.
Yeah, and there's a lot of places to go to find those things. A lot of the pieces that we use as early childhood educators come from the foundations to the Indiana academic standards. And those foundations are actually found on the Department of Education's website. So if a parent is deciding to keep their child at home, they could go to the website and see exactly what those children need to know before they go to school. There's also a great training through our local child care resource and referral agency, which is called Child Care Answers. So if you go to the childcareanswers.com website, you'll be able to find a 1-hour training on the foundation so that parents can make themselves more knowledgeable about how to teach their children if they're choosing to keep them at home.
Okay, that's great. And how do parents find out if the child care center that they're interested in is a pass to quality, or if they're licensed or regulated? Because I know that that's, a lot of times you pick child care by either what's the most convenient,
Right.
or what is the least expensive,
Right.
and in some cases that doesn't mean that they're the best quality. So how do you kind of figure all of that out?
Definitely, and I think the other side of that also is just because they're not charging a lot doesn't mean that they're not quality. So you really can't base it on the tuition. My suggestion is to go to childcarefinder.org, and that is a website run by the FSSA, Family Social Services Administration, and that has a list by county of all child cares, and it lists licensed homes, licensed centers, unlicensed registered ministries, and the exempt child care. So all the child cares that are registered with the state are on that website. It'll also tell you what level of pass to quality they fall under, or if they're not pass to quality. But the most important thing is the visit, as you were saying. You need to take time to visit the child care and take your child with you. See how the teachers interact with the child, and how your child interacts in the classroom, and spending some time doing that. And make sure that you're asking the important questions, such as, do you have staff to child ratios, which is, do you make sure that there are enough staff in the classroom to take care of the children? Do you have certain basic health and safety regulations and policies inside of the child care? And I do suggest that all parents, any child care that you visit, ask to see the parent handbook. The child care should offer a parent handbook that tells you all of their policies and procedures, and spend some time with that document before you decide whether or not that's the right child care for you.
Okay, good. Well, thanks. That's really helpful, because as we know, a lot of kids in early childhood child care centers can't talk yet.
Exactly.
So, parents really need to do their research and take some time to make sure, because kids aren't going to come back and report what happened or what they didn't like,
Right.
In a lot of ways, because they're not verbally ready for that. But we can glean a lot based on the time that we spend there, and the questions that we ask ahead of time. And also, I've asked, when I was looking for daycares, for other parents who I could call and talk to, or as I was coming and going, and I tried to intentionally visit around pickup or drop off time, so that I could talk to other parents and say, what's been your experience, or what do you think, and that kind of stuff. So that's really helpful as well. So other legislative stuff. I know there was a lot that went on this session regarding education. So what are some other things that parents should be aware of that may have gone into effect July 1st that may look different this year, or things that they should be asking their school about?
Okay. Well, with regard to kindergarten, the kindergarten funding for full-day kindergarten was put into the state budget this year. So it now is going to be consistent funding that all schools can get to provide full-day kindergarten to students for free. Parents will not have to pay for the full-day kindergarten. Not every school is going to choose to offer full-day kindergarten for a variety of reasons. They don't have the space, they don't have the staff, those kinds of things. But a parent should be able to ask their school, do you offer full-day kindergarten and do I have to pay for it? So that's a really good thing. The other thing is that the school choice voucher program was expanded this year. So now the previous qualification was that a student had to attend a public school for 1 year before being eligible. That now has changed a little bit. If you have a child that's already receiving a choice scholarship, the siblings can then automatically be eligible for a choice scholarship as well. Also, if your child is in a school corporation or a school district that is an F school rating on the Indiana scale as an F, they will qualify for a choice scholarship. Or if they have special education needs, they can qualify. There are income guidelines that parents need to be aware of, but if you call the Department of Education, you can get more information about that. There are some school safety regulations that are going to go into effect this year. One being there is a new anti-bullying law that will be going into effect where schools will have to also focus on prevention, not so much on the discipline end of bullying, creating awareness among their schools, their staff, their students about what bullying is and why it's not acceptable and how to prevent it, and also what to do when bullying happens. Parents now need to be notified when either their student has been, when their child has been bullied, or when their child has bullied another student. So schools have to, within a reasonable amount of time, notify the parents. So parents can ask their schools, what is the plan? What are they going to do this year in terms of training? How are they going to handle bullying? Those kinds of things. They can call their schools directly and ask about that.
Okay, that's great.
And following along with that now, schools are also going to be required to develop anti-gang policies. So gangs are not acceptable, criminal gangs are not acceptable in the schools. And there will be some training that will happen, and it will be a more community-wide effort, not just within the schools, but also working with the community in terms of churches and nonprofit organizations, the court system, to try to prevent kids from getting into criminal gangs and to help them get out once they have gotten involved. So that is also a good safety measure. Schools now can also apply for a grant through the state to look at school safety from a more comprehensive view. Schools can either apply that money toward hiring a school resource officer, which is a law enforcement officer that's in the school that not only provides a law enforcement presence, but also provides education, prevention training, mentoring to students who are at risk for becoming involved in the juvenile justice system. Schools can also use that funding to do a comprehensive threat assessment for their school. How safe is their school? What are improvements that could be made to make their school safer? Or they could buy safety equipment, so that could help them refurbish some of their building needs in terms of they could, buy monitors for the doors. They could, enhance their door locking system, those kinds of things. So schools now have more options in terms of making sure that their buildings and their students are safer.
Okay, and again, a parent would just need to contact their school directly to say, are you doing this? How are you doing it? What's that look like? To gain more information.
Yes.
Okay, those are all really great.
Mm-hmm.
Michael, can you talk a little bit about the family-friendly school designation?
Just a little bit, if I could just
Sure,
go back a
go
little
right
bit
ahead.
with the anti-bullying efforts. The State Department of Education is developing, or will develop very soon, kind of parameters, outlines, classroom lessons for different levels in the school system, early elementary, upper elementary, middle school, and high school, kind of lessons and lesson planning for classroom teachers, training, guidelines for training for administrators and other school personnel to get them up to speed, or offer suggestions as to what they could offer their individual schools as it relates to school safety. If I could go to attendance, because sometimes that's related to students feeling safe at school, and some students choose to skip school or avoid school because of fear of bullying. So it is something that everyone is taking very, very seriously. As well with attendance, sometimes it is focused on, or it could be caused by students being homeless or lacking fixed, regular, and adequate housing arrangements. The McKinney-Vento Act, Homeless Education Assistance Act, requires schools to allow those students to register and attend very, very regularly. And I think that that's something parents need to know about. If your homeless situation is not stable, your student can still attend their school of origin, or the school that they last attended, or the school where they are currently housed, again, if it's not fixed, regular, and adequate for those students. And sometimes, even if that student lacks, for instance, proof of receiving their vaccinations, don't have a piece of mail to demonstrate where they live, those students can still register and attend school. School systems should do their due diligence to make sure that those students are at the right place physically, but that should not be a reason to deny a student enrollment in school, which again affects attendance.
Okay, so despite housing challenges or not having housing at all or being in a shelter, children can still go to school, and it's the responsibility of the school system to make sure that that student is getting what he or she needs. Does that include, transportation if they're not near a bus stop or?
Yes, that includes transportation to and from school, from wherever you are. There are a lot of other details that go with that act, and every school district has a homeless liaison.
Okay.
So a student could, if they needed more information about that, contact their local school district or their local school, who could direct them to that liaison, who can go over all of those details with that family. But if the student is eligible as a homeless student or a McKinney-Vento eligible student, that would include transportation, that could include some student activity fees. Students would be eligible for free or reduced lunch at those schools, and other Title I services that help to accent the student's educational experience.
Okay, that's great to know, and it's great to know that there's a liaison there, because that says to me that that there are a lot of students that go through transitions throughout the year, a lot of families that may experience homelessness, and then that's not something to be so embarrassed about, that you don't still advocate and make sure that your kids are getting there, and that support is there in the schools.
And when you mentioned being embarrassed about it, one of the responsibilities is to not identify or focus a lot of unnecessary attention on that student, so that they can keep those personal issues private.
Well, is there anything else that anybody would like to add in the last about a minute that we have? Information you want to share, or last minute thought?
Well, I would really like parents, I would like to encourage parents to be involved in their child's education. It's important to get your child to school, it's important for them to be there to learn, but it's also important for parents to be engaged and to help their kids, talk to their kids about how the school is going, how do they feel about it, help them with their homework, really provide that hands-on assistance, and know that schools welcome parents to come in and be a part of their child's education system. Ask if you can volunteer in your child's classroom, ask if you can do other things to help the school, help the teachers, really engage in making a relationship with the school, with your child's teacher, because children will be more successful if they have parents who are engaged in the process, and every parent has that right.
And I would say that counts from early childhood on through high school. So it's never too early to start being engaged and involved, and it's never too late to be engaged and involved. So as much as kids sometimes may not like it, later in life I think we appreciate when our parents have been involved and help prevent some stuff from happening and ask the right questions, or just in tune. So, well, thank you guys for being here today. I really appreciate it. Again, there's a lot to focus on when you're talking about back to school, and as a parent sometimes we get so caught up in the supplies and the list and what we need to have, but there are lots of other things to consider when it comes to back to school and just making sure kids are prepared and ready, and we've got everything ready to get them there every day, and all of that. So thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of Our Kids, Our Families, Our Communities, and we look forward to seeing you again in the next episode. Thank you very much.